Endwar is really Armageddon as a techno thriller.
We've really tried to bring the first-person immersion to an RTS.
Endwar is the ultimate World War III experience.
So when you think about what the horsemen of this apocalypse would be, the first one is a missile shield that is put into place around 2015 by the United States and Europe cooperatively. So this takes strategic nuclear war off the table. The irony in this is that that also means that conventional warfare, really massive conventional warfare, becomes possible again. The second horseman of the apocalypse for us is a real oil crisis, a real energy crisis, where reserves have really dried up, and that's been ratcheting up the conflict and rivalry between the superpowers. And then finally, the militarization of space. We have the United States making moves to put an explicitly military space station into orbit, and all of the other superpowers opposing this and protesting this. And all of this kind of comes together in a way that I don't really want to ruin for people, but it sparks off a worldwide conflagration. The three factions for our game are the United States, European Federation, and Russia. In the future of our game, Europe has, because of an energy crisis, has become a genuine superstate, a genuine superpower called the European Federation. In each case, the player takes command of a unit of the elite forces of his chosen nation. So for the United States, that's the Joint Strike Force. For the European Federation, the European Enforcers Corps, and for Russia, the Spetsnaz. The player experience in Endwar does progress through two distinct phases. The first one is a linear campaign that consists of 6 missions. During those missions, we really tell the story of how the Third World War breaks out specifically. And during those missions, you'll spend time as each of the 3 factions. Then, at that point, you choose what faction you're going to play for the rest of the war, and you take personal command of a battalion that is going to be yours. It's your own persistent battalion throughout the entire course of the war. And at that point, it's really an emergent narrative. It's really your story of what happens as your career as a commander of a battalion in the Third World War. We have 40 different battlefields throughout the North Atlantic theater of this Third World War, and how the battles progress over those 40 maps is completely dynamic, and it's based on a simulation. There's a simulation model that's running of this war, and that will generate how the front lines of this war are going to shift on both continents that are involved. So it's not like you're just going to fight a war that's going to last 10 missions and then it's done. Depending on how you're performing, and also depending on how your AI faction is performing, this war could be over in 10 missions, or it could take 20, or it could drag on to 30, but it's going to rage across all 40 of these battlefields. In our game, you could see Russia as the villain. You could see them as being the ones that are just, have this kind of energy blackmail of everybody else in the world, and they're pouring all of that money into military spending. You could also see the United States as being the villain, because they're the ones who are taking this aggressive action of putting a military space station into orbit. And you can see Europe as being a villain, because they're the ones who are trying to control their own population, or kind of a big brother mentality. I think that the overall scenario of the game is just a kind of realpolitik, amoral scenario. I think that the heroism of each faction on the battlefield is what matters. It's your heroism as a commander, and the heroism of the men and women that you command. I think that that's what matters in the game. I think that Endwar is going to revolutionize strategy gameplay on consoles. I think it's going to be an experience that's completely unlike anything before it. It's really the first time that you're managing a battle with a controller in your hand, and it feels absolutely right, especially with the voice commands. And I think that, in terms of just what the future of it as a franchise would be, I would just point out that we're looking at the North Atlantic theater of a war. We're looking at a portion of a much larger conflict. So enough said, but I think that there's some room to explore there.